So we are going to start with me trimming off the edge of this because I didn't apparently do that. 2 pieces of chipboard that are 8 by 10. That would be these here. And 1 piece that is 1 inch by 10. To wrap these, you need 2 pieces of cardstock that are 10 by 12 and 1 piece that is 3 by 12. So we are going to do this using the easy wrap method. I'm going to get my scoreboard up here. I'm going to get my templates in place. It always seems to work a little bit better when I do that one on top. And I'm going to put my first piece of cardstock in here. Line that up there. Actually, get that up underneath the templates. That would help, wouldn't it? Okay, so I've just got scrap chipboard cut to 1 inch for my templates. I'm going to get the backing off of my score tape sheet. Maybe. And I am just going to line that up against the top there and down the side. Push it down. And there we go. There's our first piece, ready to wrap. The same thing with our second piece. Push all the way back up in there. Set my templates down. And again, we're going to get this backing off our score tape sheet. Maybe. Maybe not. Okay. Okay. That leaves us with a perfect 1 inch border around both of those pieces. And we're going to do the same thing with our spine. So we're going to push that in there, get our templates again, and get the backing off of our score tape. And these are actually just the 2 1/2 inch pieces I had after trimming it down from 8.5 by 11 to 8 by 10 to back the other 2 pieces. So okay, put my templates away. I'm going to go ahead and move the scoreboard out of the way, and we're going to wrap this one first. And I seem to have misplaced my phone folder here. Oh, there it is. Okay, so we're just going to fold and burnish. And then do the same thing again here. Fold and burnish. Okay. And then we are going to take our quarter-inch score tape. We're going to go around our edge of our chipboard. Which is tiny, so can be a little bit challenging just because it is so little. And then we are going to put some on here. Or are we? Yes, we are. But since we're going to cut part of this off, we don't need to go all the way across here. we're going to go ahead and get the backing off of all of these. Actually, before we do that, let's trim our corners. So for our spine, we are going to trim from this fold line to that fold line. We're just going to trim this outside corner off. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay, now we're going to get our score tape backing off. Okay, oops. Let's get our glue. We're going to take our glue, we're going to run just a little bit of glue right here, a little bit in there. Take our bone folder, and we're going to fold this up and over. And I apologize, on this one we did not need the score tape on either side here, but I'm going to leave it because eventually we are going to cover that when we attach everything here, so don't put the score tape down the sides on this one, just on the top ends. It's been a long day so far. Get some paper towel, get that wiped off. Okay, and I'm actually going to take a strip of that, stick it on the back there so I don't accidentally stick this to my table. And I'm just going to burnish this down along the sides. And you really just want to get that cardstock worked down along the edge of that chipboard. Okay. And then, using the chipboard as a guide, we're going to just miter those little side flaps there. Just a tiny bit. We're going to set that aside. Now we're going to work on the other two pieces now. Alright, so we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to fold and burnish. Fold. And burnish. And again. Fold. And burnish. Okay. Now we're going to cut out the corners. You're just going to go just on that fold line. We're going to cut the corners out, all four. And then fold it over, and you're just we're going to make sure nothing's hanging out here. So see how this is hanging out? You just want to put your scissors against the edge of the chipboard and rotate in, and that will miter that just enough you don't have anything hanging out. You're going to do this on all sides. All right, now we are going to do the 1/4" score tape all the way around. And then we're going to do it on the outside edge of our cardstock as well. I've got to get another Band-Aid. Managed to cut my finger pretty good with my Cricut craft knife. sadly. This is not the first time I've done it. I've done it several times now because I just seem to forget how wickedly sharp that thing is. And I do something stupid. In this case, I was scraping labels off of drawers from one of those cubes from Michael's because I was moving them out of the closet in my craft room here and putting them over in the across hall of my office for my sewing stuff, and just right into my finger the other day, and just took the band-aid off this afternoon, and I'm kind of regretting that now. Okay, so now we're going to get our backing off on all of these. And it's easiest to just pull it all off at one time rather than doing one side and then the next. Yeah, anyway. Okay, so we're going to start, and it really doesn't matter. You could start with the short end or the long end. We're going to start with the long end. And we're just going to run glue along the chipboard there. And then we're going to take our bone folder, and we're just going to run it along the side here, get that folded up, and then just over it goes. And do the same thing on the other side. Same thing again. We're just going to burnish that and get it up. And over we go. Turn it and do the same thing on the ends. Okay, all right, there's one of our pieces. Perfectly smooth cover. We're going to do the same thing with our other piece. So again, we're going to fold and burnish. Fold and burnish. Fold and burnish. And then we're going to cut out those corners. Okay. Miter. Autofocus must have turned back on again. I'm going to stop this. I'm going to turn off my autofocus. I'm going to finish wrapping this piece and we will come back and assemble. Okay, sorry about that. I didn't realize that the silly thing reset itself when the computer updated. So, we've got both of our cover pieces and our spine piece wrapped, ready to go. I have just added some 1/4" score tape, not all the way up. So see, it's not at the edge of the chipboard, it's about 1/8 inch away. And then on the ends. And then we are going to pull our backing off of here. We are going to add little, well, maybe we are. Okay, hold on a second. I need a pen. There we go. Yeah, don't do that either. Okay. Alright, you're going to turn this so this raw side is face down. You're going to come in here right up against the edge of the chipboard on the spine. Make sure you're even top and bottom. You're going to push it down, and then you're going to burnish. Okay, flip it over, burnish it one more time. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing on the other side. I have to turn mine around because otherwise I can do a lot of things left-handed. I cannot line these up left-handed, so okay, we're going to do our glue again. We're going to do the same thing again. We're going to get right to the edge of that chipboard. Make sure it's lined up, top and bottom, and then over we go. We're going to burnish, flip it over, and burnish again. Okay. Our first shot side should be somewhat dry. That's going to be in my way, of course, because of course it is. Hold it all the way over and burnish. Okay. Turn it around. Hopefully you did not put your tape on here, because then you're going to have the same problem I'm having right now. We're going to burnish that down. Okay. So there is our cover. We are going to cover this inside. I have a piece that is 9 7/8 by, this did not glue down. Oh my gosh, seriously, weird. Okay, 9 7/8 by 5 inches. I just have score tape on the back here again. So I'm going to get my backing off of that. It's not hanging over the edge there, which it is just a tiny bit, so I'm going to roll that over. All right, and again, this is just me. I have to turn it sideways to get it lined up right. I'm going to put that down all the way across there and burnish it down. Then we're going to come back in here with our bone folder, and we're just going to work that crease. Bend, and then do the same thing on the other side. We're going to work that crease and bend. And there is our cover. So now, what we're going to have on the inside, on this side we're going to have some pseudo accordion pockets. Our paper pad is going in on this side, but there's going to be a flap that folds over the paper pad. So let's start with the flap. Okay. Like that. So our flap is going to be 9 3/8 by 9 7/8 with the 9 3/8 side at the top of the scoreboard. Assuming I can find a scoring tool here somewhere. You're going to score this at 1 inch and then 1 3/8. Okay, I am actually going to get out my corner render, and apparently took the hook off my pegboard with it, and find a little scrap here because I'm not sure which side I want to use. I think we're going to use the bigger side. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to round my corners here. I'll bring our book in. I'm only going to fold my 1 inch right now. And burnish that down. And I'm going to get some glue on here, and we're going to put this down all the way out to the edge, okay? Before we fold in our other score line. It's just easier to line it up if you haven't already folded your second score line. It's easier to line it up if the whole thing just kind of lays flat like this. And I should have mitered my corners ever so slightly, but I didn't, and it will be fine. Okay, so we're going to come all the way out here to the edge, center it up, press that down, burnish it. Okay, so our flap is in place. Now we can just push back and get that burnished. And there's our flap that our little notepad here is going to sit underneath. Okay, so for right now, we need to actually start matting before we put anything else down, because we want to mat underneath here before we put the two little loops that are going to hold our notepad in here. Okay, so let me find which paper I want to use for that. I think I'm actually going to use that one right there. So, back side of this, we are going to mat this at, it's going to be 9 7/8 high, and then it's going to be 7 7/8 wide. So this one is not directional, thankfully. But we're going to cut it that way first. And then we're going to cut it that way. I'm kind of torn because I love that plaid. But I think I've got another piece of this in the pile over here. Don't know that I used that on my other project. I did not. Good. So I can use the other side of this somewhere else. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and mat this in here. You could ink this if you wanted to. Yeah, let's go ahead and ink it. Okay, so we're going to mat this. All right, so that is matted. So for the little tabs that are going to hold our notepad in here, we have one piece that is 2 inches by 9 5/8 and one that is 2.5 by 9 5/8. My scoreboard. So with the 9 5/8 side at the top, I need to dig out my directions again, I apologize, or my measurements anyway. We are going to score this at 1 inch and then 1 1/8. Turn it completely around and again at 1 inch and 1 1/8. Now this, of course, is all based on the size of the notepad that I am using for this project. This one did come from Office Depot a couple of months ago. If you were using a different size notepad, you would just adjust for the size of that notepad. This one measures, let's see here, about 7 3/8 by 9 and not quite 9 1/2, so about 9 3/8. And it was just kind of a different, kind of fun one that I found when I was in there actually looking for something completely unrelated, and found this instead. I will look on their website, and if they still have them, I will link them. But I found other kind of odd-sized notepads like this other places, so that's approximately the size of notepad you're looking for this project. All right, so both of these are scored exactly the same. So with the 9 3/8, I'm sorry, the 9 5/8 side at the top. 9 5/8? That can't be right. Is it? It is. Okay. Sorry. I'm like completely not all here today. Yes, that's right. Okay, so 1 inch and then 1 1/8. So what we're going to do to make sure this gets positioned where we want it. And I've got just a little bit here that did not adhere down. So we're going to use that little fine tip, which is awesome. I'll run some more glue down in there. And apparently, no, it's fine on the top. All right. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open up my notepad. And because of the way this one closes at the top, it's not really, we're not going to be able to do it all the way up. So what I'm going to do is get this in where it's sitting almost to the top, and I'm going to line it up in here, and then I'm going to fold my tabs over. Okay. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. And we're just going to line this up underneath that bottom chipboard of the back of the notepad. And we're going to fold it over. Okay, so now what we're going to do to position this, and it's going to be entirely up to you how, where you want this. If you want it centered at the top or the bottom, if you want it centered, overall centered, if you want it to one side. I think I'm going to do overall centered. So what I'm going to do is take my pencil and I'm going to mark along the side here where that band sits. Okay, I'm only going to do it on one side because when we glue it down, of course, it's going to go just straight across to where it needs to go on the other side. That's the bottom one. Okay, so we've got our little 1/8 inch gusset. Okay, that we're going to line up over here where we've drawn our line. And we're going to glue it on that side first. And then we'll glue it across onto the other side. Okay, just like that. We're going to do the same thing on the bottom. I'm just going to kind of refine where my folds are with my score marks, so that I've got that little tiny 1/8 inch gusset. We're going to do that on both sides. And this notepad did have a really heavy piece of chipboard on the bottom of it. So that was, you know, partially to what necessitated the bigger gusset. Okay, and again, we're just lining that up on that line, pressing it down, and then coming in on the other side, oops, and doing the same thing again. All right, so now we can go ahead and mat both of those, and we can start working on this page, because I have a very fun thing we're going to do on this page, but we need to mat it first, and then we will decide how we're going to do this. So I think I'm going to use this one. So this page should be it's actually just a hair too long. So I had it at where it would have been exactly 8 inches, and that is my problem. So even though this is already in here, and I will adjust the measurements for the next person to come behind me and do this, because that was, I make this mistake a lot. This is why I've been doing prototypes of things, because I literally like mismeasure on my prototypes all the time. Okay, so we're going to take 1/8 inch off of that, and that will be more than enough for that to close up right. Yeah. And then we will just re-round our corner. Easy, easy fix. Okay. So we're going to go 7, and let's try to right side up, that would help. We're going to go 7 3/4 by 9 3/4. I'm actually going to measure it from this side because I want a couple of those. 7 3/4 by 9 3/4. Okay, gonna make sure this is going to fit the way we want it, and then we're going to go ahead and round the corners on one side and ink it. And we're going to put this one down. Okay, so what we're going to do is this. I have somewhere here, as soon as I find them, there they are. One of the colors, the solid papers, and I have out of my stash Cricut dry erase vinyl. What we're going to do is put a little dry erase spot in this folio, this planner, if you will. And the way we're going to do this, so that we make sure we get it exactly the way we want it, I forget how many things are layered around here when you open these. What we're going to do is figure out what size we want our dry erase piece to be. We're going to mat it on this, and then it's going to go on here. So where that is 7 3/4 by 9 3/4, I think I want to make it 5 3/4, the mat, 5 3/4 by 7 3/4. So we're going to cut that down. Okay, so that we're going to do, we can either center it, we can put it kind of off center, which I think is what I'm going to do, so I can put some other ephemera and things down here. But I'm going to take and get a piece of my dry erase vinyl. There we go. Yes, this is the knife I stabbed myself with the other day, in case you're wondering. All right, so that's 5 3/4, so I want this to be 5 1/2. Actually, I'm going to cut this a little bit bigger because we're going to do something a little bit different here. Because as you can see, this is kind of rolling up on me, so I'm going to cut this at 6 by 8, which is bigger than our piece, but it's going to be okay. Because what we're going to do is then take a scrap of cardstock, if I have one, which I do. Okay, we're going to put this on here. And because we're not trying to line it up on something, it'll be fine. Okay, so all I'm going to do is get this on here. Just like so. Get that tape off there. Okay. So now, because this is perfectly smooth, perfectly flat, a little bit reinforced, other than there's more tape on it. I can now get my paper trimmer. And I can cut this down to 5 1/2. Turn it this way and cut it to 5 1/2. And actually, we're going to move it over because it's slightly smaller than that, by 7 1/2. I'm actually going to line this up and cut this end off first, and then turn it to 7 1/2, and there we have our perfect little, well, almost perfect. My thing must have been crooked. Okay, you know what, we're just going to cut this down to 5 1/4 by 7 1/4, which is still more than enough. There we go. Okay, so now we've got our little dry erase piece. We're going to mount that on here and then put that on there. So why would I be putting a dry erase in this book? I plan on using this for planning camping trips. And when I plan camping trips, and you'll see from my little notepad here, It's got a Monday through Sunday layout. Typically when we go camping, I will go, okay, so we're going up on Thursday, we're coming back on Sunday, and I'm going to list what meals we're going to have, breakfast, lunch, dinner, each of those days. And then I'll make a grocery list. So what I can do here, because I'll take this with me, of course, when we go camping, because we're going to make pockets to put our camp recipes in, that kind of thing. What I can do here is there's always certain things that I keep in the trailer. So like I always make sure there during the summer months that there's a canister of flour out there. I make sure there's, you know, sugar, that there's, you know, some kind of cooking oil, usually vegetable oil, just because it won't go rancid as fast as like olive oil does. All that kind of thing. So what I can do here, and we are going to put a little dry erase pen in here, is I can write down on here things I'm out of that I need to restock in the trailer, be it paper towels, paper plates, you know, we're almost out of flour, we're almost out of salt, whatever it may be, I can write it on here and I have a way to erase it. Or I can make notes on here as I'm planning. Okay, so, you know, Friday we need to pack stuff for sandwiches because we're going, you know, out fishing or something to that effect. So that is why we are putting this fun little dry erase spot in here. Okay, so, and I'm running out of time here before my babysitter gets here, so we'll see how much further I get on this tonight, and it may have to get finished up on Sunday morning, which is fine. All right, so on this side we are going to put a pen holder, and we are going to put some angled pockets. So again, we're going to mat this side, so this is going to be 9 3/4 by 7 3/4 again. So on this one, I think we're going to use, let's see how wide this one is actually. Maybe I'll use it. Nope, not quite wide enough. No big deal. Okay, I'll use this one. No, because I need the other side of that one. Let's do this one. Okay, so we're going to go 7 3/4 because it is directional. We need our bears facing up by 9 3/4. Okay. We'll bring our book in here, make sure everything's going to fit right, and then we're going to figure out, this also helps us figure out which corners we're rounding. So we're rounding these corners on this side. I mean, granted, if I did the wrong ones, we can always turn it over that way, but I don't want to do that. So let's go ahead and ink the edges really quickly. I don't normally ink, but something with this paper, it needs it. It looks, I mean, it's cute as it is, but it looks better with some ink on it, so. Okay. Lost my little paper towel piece I had in here somewhere. Oh, well, that's okay. We'll just wipe that. All right. So this page, or this flap, that is, we're going to do a couple of angled stacked pockets on here, and we're going to do a little box, for lack of a better word, to put our pens in. So let's work on the box first. Just because I know for sure what size this needs to be, we may need to adjust those pockets. So for the pocket that is going to be our pencil holder, it is 3 1/4 by 5 1/2. I don't know why I have that. I don't need that. I need this. All right. So this, let me double check here. We need to score it at 1/2 inch, then again at 1 inch, turn it all the way around, 1/2 inch, 1 inch, and then turn it so the long side is along the top, and again at 1/2 inch and 1 inch. So what we've got here, I'm actually going to erase my writing off. It's not that it's going to matter because it's going to get matted, but still. So what we're going to have is a pencil box that has a 1/2 inch gusset, okay, on all 3 sides, and then we're going to have just a little flap that's going to close down over the top of it just to hold them in there, that we're going to put just a small magnet on, okay? So for the way this needs to assemble, we need to take our scissors wherever they have disappeared to, and we're going to cut out this down here. Actually, we're going to cut it all the way in here. Okay, so that you just have this little flap and then those two. So we're going to cut all the way in on this side. We're going to cut up to here. We're going to cut all the way up that one. We're going to cut out this bottom square. Okay, so this is what you're going to have left. We're going to fold, 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 and we may need to come in, fold that over, and miter this just ever so slightly, just so it'll fold up correctly. I heard something. I'm not sure if it means my babysitter's like 25 minutes early. Which should be good because before we have date night, I think we need to go to Costco. We are out of paper towels somehow, which I did not realize when I went to Costco 2 days ago. Okay, so this is going to come in here like this. This is going to fold up as soon as I fold it and burnish it, that is. Okay, this is all going to come up and in, and then you'll attach this here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is put a little bit of glue on these 2 side tabs. Okay, get the bottom of that flush on both sides. Hold it for just a second. I'm going to fold that over, and we're going to get glue just in this bottom corner on both sides and do the same thing again. Now, this is the time when it helps if you have something long you can stick down in here and help burnish that down with. Because this is not working for me today. It's okay. This is just me doing my usual. Okay, well, we're going to pinch it that way and hold it for a second till our glue dries. And then we'll do the other side. That makes a lot more sense. Good heavens. There we go. That works. Okay. So this, and I'll leave this up to you if you want it on this side or if you want it on this side. I think I want it on this side about there. So I'm gonna Actually, instead of using glue, just so this will stick down immediately, I am going to use score tape. Now, that I'm thinking about this, should we have matted this beforehand? Probably. Don't be like me, mat it beforehand. Think it through a little better. Some days I do, some days I don't. Okay, so now then, I'm going to put glue down here. I'm going to get my backing off up here, maybe. Maybe I'm not, I don't know. Oh my gosh, some days. And then I'm going to get this over towards the edge here, leaving just a tiny bit of a border. I'm going to push that down. I'm going to take my bone folder and burnish down in there. So, what I can do, if I've got one handy, I could take a little 1-inch scrap, and I think that's exactly what I'm going to do. Take a 1-inch piece. And I am going to, okay, so this should be 5.5 inches, I believe. No, I'm sorry, 4.5 inches. So I'm going to cut this to 4 3/8. And I am going to put some glue on it, and I'm going to slide it down inside there. Just to mat it and reinforce it. Because this piece is going to go up higher. It's not going to like close it all the way. It's going to sit kind of up above. But we're not going to do that until we have one of our pens ready to go and kind of see where that pen sits. And then we'll determine how far up we want this to go. Okay? So really, we could wait on using a piece to kind of mat and reinforce that and just bring it all the way up, not run it all the way down inside, leave it part way up so that it mats this underneath, which really it's not big enough. So, but you follow my train of thought here. Hopefully. It's all over the place tonight, and I apologize. So this piece is 1 1/4 by 3.5. And we're going to score this at 1/2 inch and at 1 inch. I am going to put 3/8 inch score tape on here. I'm going to fold and burnish, and fold and burnish. And then I am going to get a small set of magnets and get it on here, ready to go. So that I do not forget it. Because we want this little sucker to just close right up. And we can use the small magnets because nothing's going to go underneath it. So, I'm going to tuck this in here. We're going to say, okay, this needs to go about here. So I'm going to pull this off. Not the magnet, the backing. I'm going to figure out about where this needs to sit. And push it down. And there we go. And I am going to round the corners on this one with the smaller side here. And then, because we've got our magnet where it needs to go. We can use that as our guide to stick this top piece down. All right, there's our little flap for our pins. I can take this, because it needs to be 1 1/8, not 1 1/4. And I can slide this down in here, up onto there, and there we go. Burnish that down. That will help to reinforce it, and we can come back and mat the rest of that later. All right, on to our angled pockets. So as it stands right now, the bigger of the two is 6.5 by 8.5. Throw this in my scoreboard. I'm going to score it at 1/2 inch on one side, turn, and 1/2 inch on this side. Okay. We're then going to measure up and over and cut our angle. And my babysitter is here, so I will be back with the rest of this later. Okay, so we've got both our pockets scored 1/2 inch on the one long side and one short side. We're going to go ahead and miter. And then we are going to decide where we want to trim. So I think I'm going to go on the large pocket. We're going to go 3 inches here and 2 inches on the short side. So I've made a mark at 3 inches that I can't see and 2 inches, and I'm just going to draw a line across here. Well, maybe I am. We're going to trim that off. On the other one, let's do 2 inches on the long side. So I find my score mark. And the 3 inches here is from your score mark here on the bottom. I'm going to go 2 inches there. Let's go 1.5 inches on this one. This pencil is just killing me today. Okay. All right. So now I can either do this with scissors or I can put it in my trimmer and line it up, which is what I think I'm going to do. I think I can find my line. Cut that off. Same thing on the other side. Okay. All right, so now we can go ahead and fold and burnish. We'll put our big pocket down first. And that's about perfect. So we're going to put our big pocket down here. And then our little pocket, we can either do it on top or we can do it going the opposite direction. And I think I kind of like it going the opposite direction. So I think that's how we're going to do it. Okay. So we're going to put them down just like that. Maybe we do want it that way. Nope, I think I am going to do it the same way. We'll just fold those the other direction. On our bottom here, we're going to miter this just a little bit. Do the same thing on our top. We're going to do the same thing on the other one as well. And let's grab the glue. And we're going to go ahead and get some glue on here. And we're going to come in here and get this down. Now you can set this all the way to the bottom. I'm actually going to offset it just a little bit so we have a little bit of border from our paper we matted underneath. And then this one is going to go on top. However, we probably need to mat this one first. So, because our base for that was 6.5 by 8.5, with the score, you're looking at 6 by 8. So let me find... Let's go with that. So it was 6 by 8. We need 5 7/8 by 7 7/8. And then we're just going to find our ruler. And we're going to come on this side and we're going to measure in, grab a different pencil actually. We're going to measure in 3 inches again, and 2 inches up here. And we're going to trim that. Sure we don't have any little pencil marks left. Put the book back in, dry fit just to make sure everything looks good. We need to trim a little bit more off of that angle. Much better. I need new blades in my trimmer, I think, because that didn't cut. And I don't know if I have any more for that one. I may have to go get some. But it will do for now. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to have to stop and clean that out here in a minute. All right. Okay. Now we can get our other pocket on. I'm just going to put that one down in that same corner. Just trim a tiny bit off of that because it's like blending out kind of funny. Run that out to the edge of our pocket. Glue that down. Okay, and we can go ahead and mat that one. And that one, the finished size on that was 5 by 6, so I think it's 6 up and down. So we're going to go 5 7/8 high and 4 7/8 wide on this one. And then we're going to do the same thing again with our angles. We're going to go in 1.5 inches here. No. Yes. Okay, so 1.5 inches here and 2 inches here. And then trim that off. Just a tiny bit off the bottom of that. Perfect. Okay. I'll ink that one. And get it put down on here as well. I'll come back and mat that one later. There we go. All right. So we are ready to move on to our kind of accordion pockets that are going to go on this side, which we do actually, not sure if we need to mat the whole thing. We'll figure that out here in a second. Let's take care of these pockets first. So I have 3 pieces that are 7.5 inch wide. One is 3.5 inches high. One is 4.5. One is 6. These are going to be part of our pocket base. My other 3 pieces are 8.5 by 4 inches, 5 inches, and 6.5. We are going to score the 8.5 inch pieces at 1/2 inch on 3 sides. That's not 1/2 inch. That's 1/2 inch. Get all the way to the scoreboard here. That would really help. Okay, half an inch again, half an inch again, and half an inch. One more time. Move that out of the way. We are going to miter the pockets. Alright, so let's start with our biggest pocket. And what we're going to do is we're going to fold and burnish. Okay, and what's going to happen is this piece is going to go on the back to form our pocket. You can do it one of two ways. You can do it where you're actually going to glue this on top of your tabs, which is probably going to be the easiest way to, or the best way to do it. These are 7.5. I actually cut them about 1/16 of an inch short, just so that they will sit completely on top of these bases. Okay, we're going to go ahead and miter the top of these just ever so slightly, just so that they don't stick up too far. Okay, I apologize. I had to stop for a minute because of some background noise and didn't realize that this did not restart when I thought it did. All I did was glue my pockets together, so you just folded your score lines down and attached the other piece to the back of it here. What we're going to do now is go ahead and mat these. We're going to mat the first two. We're not going to mat this one yet. So let me go ahead and get my glue again. We're going to mat these two. We're going to assemble this together and put it down, and then we will determine, which we probably should have done that first because it should have gone under that, but that's okay. I'm not sure if we're going to really need it or want it or not. Okay, so what we're going to do is, the finished size on these is 7.5 wide on all three of these. What we're going to do is we're going to put glue in the middle about 2 inches of this, okay? Doesn't have to be exact. I just cannot win with the glue today. I literally just spent 10 minutes cleaning these out and they're still doing it again. Okay. We're going to center this up. Stand it up like that. And just glue them together. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing with this one. About the same 2 inches or so in the middle. Center it at the bottom. Glue it together. actually going to clip these and let these kind of sit for a second, and then we're going to glue this down to the center here. What I'm not sure if we want or not is I did have a flap cut for this. Let's go ahead and score this flap and just test it out. I'm going to tell you the flap's going to be optional. You don't have to do it if you don't want to. So my flap is 7.5 by 10, which it may end up being shorter than that. So I'm going to do 1 inch score at the top. And the reason we didn't put this mat on yet is if we do end up using this, I am going to put a magnet in here. So we don't want to mat that, end up putting a magnet in here, and then having to cover up the magnet if we don't have to. I'm going to leave that as is. So this would basically go all the way to the bottom here. And we would put this to the top up here. So you would have this whole section that would then fold back if you wanted to. And you would put a magnet in here and on here to hold this closed, just to keep anything in here that you may want to keep from sliding up out of the top. I don't think it'll be an issue, quite honestly, so I don't think I'm going to do the flap. I don't think I love the flap, but you could do the flap if you wanted to. I would actually take this from 10 inches down to about 9 inches instead. If you want to do that, I'm actually going to pass on it this time. So we're going to go ahead, and this back pocket we're gluing down, or the back side of this, when we glue it down to the base, we're going to glue all the way around. Okay, we're going to line that up, the bottom, center it side to side, put it down, and we can go ahead and mat the front. And there we go. I am actually going to clip this on both sides just to make sure this gets good and stuck. Alright, so we can come in here, we can go ahead and mat these now that we're down to like scraps kind of. So this is 2.5, so we'll do 2 3/8 by 7 1/4. To use that one on there, but I think I will. Okay, so 2 3/8. Actually, let's cut that down to length. So both of these are going to be the same length. So 2 3/8. On that one, and the other one should be 1 7/8, which this is just a tiny bit too small, but you know what, I think I'm going to do it anyway. And instead of this one being 2 3/8, I think I'm going to take this one down just a little bit more so they're both about the same, which will work just fine. Okay. And really, if you didn't want to mat these, you don't really have to. I just think it gives it a more finished look. Okay, so now we can go ahead and put our notebook in here as soon as I find it. Okay, so this is just going to slide straight down in, just like so. Just like that. That's just perfect. That closes up like that. We need a little strip to mat down that section right there. Let's see what we've got going as far as scraps over here. Like that. Okay, so our spine was 1 inch, so we're going to do this at 7/8 of an inch. Seems really small. I know it's right. That's okay. And then by 9 7/8. Okay. That looks good. And then we need to map this. And then we can work on matting the front and getting it decorated, and then we are all finished. Not a super long or super difficult project. I really, other than pre-cutting my cardstock and my chipboard, I have done the entire project with you. So it's not a super difficult project to do. You could theme this to just about anything. Honestly, this would make a great like meal planning book. In fact, I honestly might make me I've got another one of these notepads. I might make another one and do exactly that with it, because that would be a really good idea. So this is 1 1/4, so we want 1 1/8 wide for that. I don't think we're going to get enough of the words off of that one to use that, so I think I'm just going to go with those little trees again. Put it to 1 1/8, and then this piece here ends up being 4 1/2, so we'll go 4 3/8, and there is that piece. And then the top is going to be 2 3/8, which is not quite long enough for that one. We'll get a second one for the inside there. And get all of these inked up, and then we can just cut some little 1/2 inch strips, or well, not 1/2 inch, 3/8 inch strips to go around the sides. If we wanted to, we could leave them as is. That would be fine as well. I think I'm going to use that side up. Okay. Alright, so let's get those matted. It would have been helpful if I'd rounded my corners first, huh? There we go. Honestly, that's half the time why my projects don't get rounded corners and that kind of thing. It's because I intend on doing it and then it doesn't happen. And by the time I figure that out, it's too late. And I go, oh well, they're not rounded this time, and that's okay. Yeah, that's directional. We're gonna have to recut that one. That's okay though. Here we go. That one's down. Okay, so this time we need to do the corner rounding at the top, not at the bottom. There we go. All right, so that's all good. We could mat that little strip there if we wanted to. I think I'm going to leave it alone because it kind of, these actually match almost perfectly, which was a complete stroke of luck. That was not intentional. Okay, we can go ahead and put our dry erase pen in there wherever I've managed to lose it now. And we're just going to use that one as a placeholder. That is not actually the pen I'm going to leave in here, but just to kind of give you the general idea here. They're going to sit in there just like that. The weight of those is going to hold this one down perfectly. And then we just need to work on our front. So I am going to use the last little bit of this red gingham as my closure. And I need my silver edge score tape here somewhere. I really need to like show you pictures of what happens around the area you can't see because it's a disaster. Okay, so let's do that. Let's find our midway point here. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Find our midway point and add another little piece of this score tape. And then I am literally just going to fold my little piece here because this piece is about 12 inches, maybe 14. We're just going to cut this in half. And go ahead and adhere that down so that I don't forget it. Because otherwise, I promise you, I will forget it. And we will get this all matted and decorated and I'll go, oh, where's my ribbon? Crap. This is what happens. All right. So, I want to mat this on the front with this constellation paper. I love this pattern out of all of the paper in this collection. This is probably one of my favorite patterns. So we are going to mat the front of this with that collection, or that pattern. And so we need 7 and 7/8 by 9 7/8. For the front. Although that one's really cute too, but we've already used this for the front of something, so we're going to use the, telling you, the glue is out to get me today. Okay. Awesome. Okay, so for the spine, I do have another piece of this that's not quite wide enough to go on the back, but that's okay. The spine, I think we're going to do this black and white check. So again, 9 7/8 by 7/8, which I'm actually going to go just a hair bigger because the spines, it always seems to need to be a little bit bigger. Okay, so there's that. We just need to mat the back. On the back, I think we are going to use, okay, I've never shaded that one. We can't use that one this time. I think we're going to use this one this time. Okay, so again, 7 7/8 by 9 7/8. Okay, and then we are pretty much done other than some decorating, which I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I need to kind of go through my remaining ephemera and whatnot and figure that out. I will do that off camera because that always takes me so much longer than the rest of this does. But as always, if you follow along and make this tutorial, please share it in Scrapbookers of Country Craft Creations and also on my Facebook page, Scrapping Under the Influence. I always love to see what everybody does with my tutorials and their versions of them. It's always really, it's fun for me to see what you guys come up with. So there we have it. I will go ahead and decorate the rest of this off camera, but that's it. There is our camping planner folio. Thanks.